this tutorial, we will actually design the content view, and what is important to mention is that the content view is not what is displayed here, but actually the content view is kind of a structure that enables us to show different views when we click on these tabs, basically speaking. This is a separate view, this is a separate view, this is a separate view, and this as well. And therefore these are displayed in different files. The first thing that you should pay attention to is when you actually want to see a preview here. This usually won't work. So you go for iPhone 13, for example. iPhone 13 Pro, I usually use this one. Now here you can see like all the items which we first declared in the persistence controller. The persistence controller was this file where we said for I in 0 to 10 generate these kind of items. And I wanted to correct myself for the things I mentioned in the past. And I said that actually the timestamp is of no use. I want to correct myself, it actually is of use, because with the timestamp we can actually filter by date. And this is very important for the presentation view. I can quickly show you this in the simulator, because in the presentation view for each date we can count the items that have no main but refer to a topic of an item and have the same topic but are no mains but simply entries, and then filter them by date and then add up the progress, as well as here. Here we can see all the items which refer to the current date. So that is why the timestamp is quite neat. And also if you would delete it, then this predetermined selection wouldn't work, because this file is automatically generated if you simply integrate CoreData into your template of a new application, and it only uses the timestamp and nothing else as an attribute for your CoreData entity. Okay, and then we can count actually the items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as you can see, 10 items as we declared. So here we can actually delete almost everything except like this on the top. You have to imagine that you can't simply declare a variable if you actually want to access what's saved into CoreData, but actually always when you want to call the items that are saved to CoreData, you simply use this section, this here. So you're basically fetching for data, so we actually call this fetch data. Okay, then this will be deleted first, and we will work from here. Okay, this works. Then we have properties. This is as well a part of a tutorial from Kavsoft, who I mentioned in previous videos multiple times. Okay. Add stat var current tab of type tab equals dot home. So comment hiding native one. Init, open brackets, enter, UI tab bar dot appearance dot is hidden equals true. Okay, fine. Matched geometry effect add namespace var animation comment current tab x value. So these double slashes always introduce comments and they will not affect the code you program. So you don't actually need them, but it's really beneficial if you use them for describing your code while you're programming it and explaining what you are doing while you're doing it. Add state var current x value with the type of CG float. So a number, float variables are numbers, and equals the 0. So another section, this time it is the body. Okay, now we go for var body sum view, open brackets, and then we go for tab view and selection content. And now we use a $sign as a selector of current tab. So current tab can change. This is a variable, as you can see here. And the $sign is simply kind of a selector that selects the current tab, so the tab that is used at this current moment. This is flexible, as you can say. Okay, so in this tab view, we will actually display these 4 views. And we call these files with different names. So the first one was the task overview view. The second one was the task edit view. The third one was the presentation view. And the fourth one was the settings view. Tasks overview view. Then we go for task edit view. Then for presentation view. And the settings view. Okay, and then we will also modify them. So frame max width. So the screen will be completely covered. Dot infinity max height dot infinity. And for tag, we will use tab dot home. Then we copy these. And don't mind like these names. This will make sense later on. I simply didn't change it from the tutorial. So we will call them later on, these names. Notifications and account. Okay. Curved tab bar. And also you can see here, like here we are fetching data. And here we are actually using from this object context and the persistence controller all the items which are stored in the preview. So always when you actually want to display example data in different views, you always have to add this modification. So keep that in mind if you have other tabs where you actually want to display example items. Okay, so now you can actually copy that code. Take your time, pause the video, and then we will continue. So now we will do an overlay. What is an overlay? Basically, an overlay is displayed over the view that you actually programmed. So an overlay, for example, if I would use an overlay for this list, then on top of the list would be displayed what is programmed in this overlay. This is how you can imagine that. Okay, then we go for an HStack. So spacing 0, open brackets for each, tab dot all cases, comma, ID, double point, then the special slash, dot raw value, close brackets, open brackets, tab in, enter, tab, button, tab, double point, tab. This looks fine. Then we will modify this. Padding dot vertical. I will explain a few things about this code later. Something is messed up now. We will fix it later on. Simply continue. Preview, won't show, save area. Padding. So whenever something is slightly off with your configuration, this will happen that actually there will be a space between here and the thing that you put in. But we will fix it later and then see where the mistake is actually. Bottom, comma, get save area, open brackets, close brackets, dot bottom equals equals. So this is basically is identical, and something is not identical would be this, at least in Python. I believe it's the same for SwiftUi and Xcode. And then 0, and then question mark. So this is basically yes or no. So if it is 0, then something should happen, and if it's not, then something else should happen. Double point, get save area, open brackets, close brackets, dot bottom -10. Close brackets, close brackets. This looks fine. Still, something is off. So here background, follow with an enter again. Now we are calling the material effect, which we defined first in another file as a struct. So the file is actually called material effect. Style, double point, point, system, ultra thin material. Okay, I believe this is a modification that only works for newer Xcode versions. So sometimes you have it that only certain versions support different kind of modificators because they were introduced at a certain point of time. And also when you actually want to create applications for iPhones, iPads, and Mac systems, you have to be really careful what you use for which items, because usually the modifications that work for very recent versions won't be supported for the Mac. That's at least my experience. I might be wrong, but to my experience, it's quite complicated to actually create something that will be supported by iPads, iPhones, and Macs. Usually iPads and iPhones is not a problem. Usually both are supported, but when you want to support Macs as well, it gets complicated. At least when you want to use recent stuff, and sometimes you have to go for workarounds and so on. That's at least my experience. I might be wrong, as I said. And these things can always change. It's up to the developers to change and adjust, and I'm not a developer for this system. I mean, not for the environment. I don't do anything for making Xcode better or whatever. These are people that are employed by Apple. So here we go for a comma, alignment bottom. So this will actually align this overlay. Okay. So now ignores save area. So this will actually ensure that areas will be ignored that are like here and so on. Dot all edges by button. So you're basically using the full screen instead of only the safe part. Always dark. Preferred color. Dot dark. Okay. So here we are actually using only the dark mode for our application as specifying it. Okay. So I wanted to do a little bit of explaining. So what is an H stack? Basically, you can align elements on your screen in different kind of ways. First, there's a V-stack. So a V-stack, for example, you call different objects and structs, and then they will be aligned vertical. So the first item will be on top, then the second item will be beneath it, and so on. The H-stack does the same thing just for horizontal alignments. So you start left, then go to right, and so on and so on. And the Z stack is very specific. So this would be Z stack, because then the first thing you mention will be aligned in the background, and the further things you mention will be aligned on top of this element. We'll go for functions. So top button, add view builder. Func, tab button. Now we're actually declaring tabs, so that might be the cause of all these problems. Since geometry reader, open brackets, enter, then proxy in, so leaping through something, button, open brackets, with animation. So this actually declares that as soon as an object is animated, then something will be usually displayed or something else will happen. Okay. Then we go for current tab. It's gleich tab. So we're declaring all this kind of stuff, what we're actually using here and on different other occasions. Tab, tab here. We're doing this here now. Basically configuring and coding all the logic that is needed. Current x value equals proxy frame, open brackets, close brackets, in double point, point global, point mid x. So here we go for label, double point, open brackets, close brackets. Then here we go for comment, moving button up, for current tab, image, system name, tab.raw value, comment, since we need perfect value for curve, point. Then we go for a few modifications, so resizable, aspect ratio, fit as modification, frame. So this is just like visuals. You could experiment with those. Frame. Foreground color will be white. Then padding by department. Current tab equals tab question mark 15 or 0. So if yes or no, two options. I would recommend that you copy this code now. And to actually see more, you can usually switch between canvas and show editors only. Okay, here we go for background. Then in the background, we will use a Z-stack. Open brackets, close brackets. And one thing that I forgot to mention is actually you can, for example, when you have padding, like here, you can also only go for vertical or something at the bottom and so on. This is quite neat if you need specific padding. Here, for example, when you, for example, want to use padding only for these spaces, then you only go for horizontal. If you use padding without specifications, padding will be added on all sides. So horizontal sides and vertical sides as well. Okay, so the Z-stack. If current tab equals tab, or is identical to tab, then material effect, open brackets, close brackets, style, system chrome material dark. Okay. Then we will modify it, so we'll give it a clip shape. And here we will use a circle. And then we go for match geometry effect and give it the ID of tab that we declared somewhere else, and then in animation. Okay. We have this, this, and this looks good according to the structure we want to use. And then here we will modify the content shape and we will use a rectangle for that. offset epsilon double point current tab is identical to tab. If yes, minus 50. If not, 0. Then you go here, click enter, go for setting initial curve position, point. So when will it appear? It will appear on appear. And if tab equals tab dot all cases dot first double and current x value. So this is basically just an AND in Xcode language. In other language, you would just call it like this. This is just simply another format for the same thing. Is identical to 0. So a very specific case. This tab has to be identical to this, and the current x value has to be identical to 0. Only then the current x value will equal the proxy.frame in point global point mid x. Okay, then we go 1, 2, 3. Okay, we go here. Enter dot frame. Then we go for the height of 30. Comment max size. And then we'll have to add this one. And we still didn't declare the tabs. Okay, but this format should actually work so far. And we'll make it like this, because this is where we started to modify everything. Okay, so beneath the preview, which we just let it as it is, we will comment to iterate in number 4 tab, point, and now we will declare the tabs. Tab double point string, case iterable, open brackets, close brackets, so case home equals line point 3 point horizontal point decrease dot circle dot fill. So this is something specific, and you can find these things when you actually download, just a moment, now, these SF symbols. So this is something you can download somewhere. You maybe just have to Google it, and then you will have many icons. And when you downloaded it, then you can simply search through them. And for example, I could go now for line.3.horizontal, and then you can see that I picked, I believe, this or this one, whatever. We can simply check. So I used this one, and that's it. So you can search for fitting icons and then simply copy the name and use it for these strings. And it will automatically load. So you don't have nothing to do except using the proper SF symbol and then put it basically in, and this is how you can change up the icons. And now you will see that this makes sense. So first, home, search, notifications, and account didn't make sense as names, but now we are declaring them for different cases, and you could obviously name them differently. I simply didn't change them up after watching a tutorial. Okay, circle.fill, case notifications. So it's directly popping up. Chart.bar.x-axis. So case account gearship.circle.fill. Okay. Comment getting safe area. So now we go for an extension. View, open brackets, func, get safe area, open brackets, close brackets, transforms to UI edge inserts, open brackets, close brackets, and here we go for guardlet screen. Guardlet screen equals UI application dot shared dot connected scenes dot first as question mark UI window scene. For this one, else return .0. Then we click here, go for enter, guard, let safe area equals screen.windows.first question mark dot save area inserts, insets, not inserts, else open brackets, close brackets, return .0. Then we click here, press enter, return, save area. Okay, then this should be free of errors now. Sometimes the only thing you have to do when the file is full of errors, you click simply start whatever. Then Xcode is basically looking if there are any errors, and as you can see, after we declare everything and press this button, now everything works. So this is quite cool, and always when you have too many errors but you're quite sure that the code is actually correct, I recommend to you that you use this possibility to simply click here. Okay, and as you can see now, here's something missing. So this usually indicates that we made a mistake, and the mistake has to be here because the gear shape is not displaying. So I made a spelling mistake. And if we would replace it, then we will see if the gear shape actually now appears or not. Ta-da, it appears. So this is quite cool. So if you make spelling mistakes, then Xcode will show it in the simulator, and as you can see now, ta-da, your application is working now. You have a cool tab bar. And now we can proceed with defining what is displayed in these, like on these screens. So before I let you code the rest of it, you may think, well, this guy, he used like knowledge he got from other tutorials and mixed it with something else. But what I want to tell you, at this point, we simply used frameworks and code that another guy introduced, and these elements can be used for different applications. So it is totally okay to use elements that other people introduce and to use them to maximize the benefits that your application can withhold. So that is very important. You want to create the best user experience for this. And even though I don't completely understand what's going on, so I know how these kind of things works because I can read this kind of code and understand what is basically working, but I couldn't simply come up with something like this. I would have to search things up and so on. But many people are like that. This is really important to understand for you, that many programmers and many coders, they are just as me. They couldn't, when you show them a picture of this and you say, no, program this, they wouldn't be able to directly, out of their memory, come up with this code. This is totally normal. Being a coder and a programmer actually means that you are able to search for the proper code structures and files and so on and examples, which you then can implement and use them to actually create, with all the files you see, a proper application. And in the further videos, I will show you more of my programming style, what I do to optimize applications and so on. And then you will see lots of things that I came up with as my own solutions and so on. And I also made a few videos in the past where I solved different kind of problems. And these things are usually simply to my interest, and then I will simply look for solutions. For example, you will find a video where I show how you can save colors to CoreData and which tricks you need. And there are simple explanations and forums which you can find in the internet, but I didn't find a single video which explains it as simple as I do, how you can actually do that. So trying, using experiences of others and so on might lead to a solution you were searching for, which you then come up with yourself, but you are basically never building everything without a foundation. So you always are searching for a foundation and then build up from that. Okay, now take your time and copy this code and then press this and look if everything is working. If something is not working, then go back to the happy coding sections and simply compare every line if the code is actually correct and identical.